Hello and welcome to episode number 3 of a 6-part series called How Your Food Choices Affect You and Your World. I'm Pamela Ziemann with Elemental Cuisine, where we help people transition out of the sad diet to a healthy plant-based lifestyle. And it's about so much more than food. It's about the ultimate self-care, the ultimate self-love. And I'm really excited. I love it when I find a cookbook that is more than just recipes, because there are so many recipes out there. The Mystic Cookbook has all kinds of rituals and really fun things to explore. And we have the author with us today, Meadow Linn. How are you doing, Meadow? Welcome.
Thank you. It's such a joy to be here on this beautiful morning.
Yeah, and you're down in California, right?
I am. It's a beautiful foggy morning. I always love the fog. It feels almost mystical, like you never know what's dancing and playing in the mists.
Oh, perfect, perfect. So the Mystic Cookbook, we have so much, and I could talk to you for an hour and a half or 3 hours because there's so much that we can talk about here. But the 3 main things, the title of this topic is Infusing Joy and Fun into Your Meals. So we'll talk about different spices we can add, different rituals, the elements of earth, water, fire, and air, and the different colors of food. I just hardly know where to start. Let's talk about some of the different elements, the earth, water, fire, and air. I know you talk about this in your cookbook. Could you tell us a little bit more about how to incorporate the nature's elements into our food, into our meals?
I'd love to, and that actually is in a chapter called Cooking Up Magic in the book that you mentioned. And in that chapter we talk about, I have a pen in my hand, so I'll keep my hands down, but I'm going to put it down so I can talk with my hands. So it's in a chapter about cooking up magic, where we have lots of different ideas of ways that you can infuse that joy, love, fun, and magic into your meals. And elemental meals are so much fun because, as you know, elemental cuisine, this is obviously something that you're passionate about, that air, water, fire, and earth are what make up our world. And it kind of harkens back to the times of traditional cultures that lived more in alignment and in attunement with the cycles of nature, with the seasons. But in our kind of frenetic, chaotic modern day, there can be power in connecting back with those elements that are really at the base of all life. So air, water, fire, and earth, there are a few different ways that you can work that into your meals. And one of those ways, maybe you're feeling a little out of balance. So would be to create a meal that is a, sorry, I lost my focus. My cat just hopped up onto my desk. but so if you're feeling a little bit out of balance, oh, there she goes. Sorry. So if you're feeling let me try that sentence for the 3rd time. If you're feeling out of balance, you can create a meal dedicated to all 4 elements. And you can do that with your intention. Hold the intention of balance and wholeness and create a meal that's dedicated to the elements. Or, and I'll talk about that in a minute about how you can do that. Or alternatively, if you want to deepen your connection with one particular element, or if you're feeling a little out of sorts and you really want to heighten one aspect of your life, you might choose to create a meal that's dedicated to one particular element. Perhaps you're feeling kind of emotional and you want to kind of work through that. You might choose to create a meal that's dedicated to element of water, which is traditionally associated with our emotions. Or maybe you're starting a new project in your life and you're time of new beginnings and you want to kind of add that fire, that spice into your life. You might do a meal dedicated to fire that's really good for creativity and your spiritual side and getting that energy going for that new project.
So you might have some more chili peppers for that one, or how would you ignite?
So there are a few different ways you could do that, as I said. So one is you could take a literal approach and create a meal. And if you're doing a meal dedicated to all elements, you might do 4 courses, each one dedicated to each of the elements would be one way. Or you might do a meal that incorporates all aspects. But for this example, let's use the water meal just to make it simpler in my explanation. So you can take that literal approach, as I was talking about, where all the foods come from the water. Maybe you do cranberries and rice or fish or shellfish, and you have this literal approach to it. Another way would be that you serve soups or water-containing foods, watermelon, cucumber, that contain a lot of water and are also ones that are infused with that energy of water. So there are many different ways that you can approach it. You can also then, because say that you're doing this water meal because you want to kind of deepen your connection with your emotions or work through something, maybe choose foods that have special meaning to you, comforting foods, or foods that remind you of a particular time from your past when you felt a lot of joy or happiness or whatever emotion it is you want to evoke, or maybe counterbalance the emotions that you're feeling right now. So there are many different ways that you can approach it. There's not one right way and one wrong way. What is most important is what feels right to you. And then
So it's a unique approach for each person. What are you feeling a little bit out of balance with, or what feels right for you? I know when I'm on Google Plus, I see so many people responding to the photos of nature. Just when I'm out in nature, I have nature all around me, and those really appeal to people. I think we're so missing our natural element, and we're with our computers all the time, and we just want to feel grounded. So, you know, for me, I like to go get a squash, are really great right now to get, or a root vegetable, something like that that's hearty, that can just ground me back into my body.
And that's a wonderful example of choosing the foods that feel right to you for that moment. So it is very individual which foods you hold. And one of the most important things, as you said, Pamela, is holding the intention. So you said for you, those squash that are ripe right now and in season have that feeling for you of grounding. And so you have that intention when you eat it. So that's what's most important. Whether your water meal or your meal dedicated to all the elements is takeout, or whether it's something that you've grown and harvested yourself, that's less important than how it feels to you and the intentions that you set. And when you set those intentions, eat and cook with that intention. So as you're making that water meal, think about what it is you want to work through, what it is you want to move into and make that your intention. As you stir that pot, so say you're making soup for your water meal, stir that soup with the intention of that balancing, that harmonizing, that equalizing, whatever it is you're striving for into that soup, and then eat with that same intention as well.
And also the chopping of the vegetables. I know down at the culinary school, I watched the instructor just chop, and she was very fast. She was really good at it, but it was a different kind of feeling. You could tell she was putting care into it. It wasn't like drudgery, like, oh, now I have to chop all these vegetables. It was more like, oh, I really care about this meal. And totally, I mean, some people think it's out there, but I could feel the difference when I ate that food. It was amazing. And if we are what we eat, if we're eating care and intentional preparation of the food, that makes a huge difference. Like we were just talking about in the green room about, you know, going to the grocery store and picking out those vegetables. Are you going into that with this sense of, oh, it's another thing I have to do, or we can just shift our mindset so quickly, and that will change everything about what we're ingesting.
It's kind of how, like, you know, people will wax lyrical about grandma's apple pie. And, you know, I'm sure grandma makes a really good apple pie, but so much of what we hold in our memory, in our taste memory, and in our heart isn't just the butter, the sugar, the cinnamon, the apples that went into that pie. Is that when we eat that pie, we're tasting Grandma's love, her care that went into it, and that is all part of our experience of that pie. And so that's how, you can go to a restaurant and have something one day that tastes, and I actually had this experience. I went to this restaurant in Florence, and I waited in line for hours. Well, at least it felt like hours. I'm not sure how long it really was, with some friends to eat in this little cafe that was on the far side of the river. It was a long journey to get there, and it was a very simple pasta that I had. It was some sort of pasta noodle, I think spaghetti or linguine, fresh tomatoes, fresh artichoke hearts, and a little bit of Parmesan cheese. And all of us were, and these were friends who weren't into mystic cooking or anything, but we were saying that it felt like magic fairy dust had been put on the food because it was so amazing. Everything sparkled. And then I went back to that same restaurant and ordered the same dish a few weeks later. It wasn't the same. And then hoping that maybe it would be good again a few years later, I dragged my parents there on a trip to Florence, and the sparkle wasn't there. And it was a combination, I think, of the anticipation of waiting for that table and being with the friends and trying to get to this new cafe, but also, I don't know what was happening in the kitchen. It's very possible that that chef that one day was feeling really amorous or filled with love, or the person who grew those vegetables was having a heightened spiritual experience when he was picking them. But whatever it was, there was magic that first time that I couldn't recreate another time. And so food, and I know you know this, Pamela, it's not just the sum of its parts. There's this alchemical, and that's why the subtitle of the Mystic Cookbook is The Secret Alchemy of Food. There's this alchemical process that happens that is not just adding ingredients, but it's all those other ingredients, that love, that joy, that care, that intention that infuses the food and really does make a difference. Grandma's apple pie next to the Albertsons or Safeway pie won't necessarily be the same unless you have an amazing association for that Albertsons, Safeway, Vaughn's pie because something was going on in your life at that time that created a memory in your head where it lodged, and that creates a new template for you. But so now I'm going off on another subject. But
and I would love to hear from our listeners. Maybe you could write in the comment section, have you ever eaten something that was just magical and it was so amazing? Like, for example, I went back to Minnesota, and when I was back there, we had this bean tostada at the French Meadow Cafe. It was fabulous. And
well,
then we had to go,
French Meadow Cafe.
yeah, we had to go back, and it was so good. And the next time we ate it, it didn't have any magic. There was no love. There was no joy. You could taste it. And I thought, what if I would have told some of my friends, like, you got to go check this out. You got to go there. And they would have had a different chef or different ingredients or something that wasn't made with the same love. They would have looked at me like, are you kidding? You thought that was fantastic? And it would have been a totally different experience. So, we have some people live in the audience. I just want to give a quick shout out to them. It's Melanie McDonald. Hello there. Nicole Levac, Sue Flemke, Carla, Stephanie McHugh, Jennifer Seitzer, Penny, Christopher Parasol, George Green, Amelia Hoskins, Carlos, and Tamara Belland. And we also have a question. There's just so much in a half an hour. That's why you got to get the book, too, the Mystic Cookbook, because it's filled with amazing things you can do on your own, in your own kitchen. But Lon says, since I usually dine alone, I have a bad habit of not setting aside time to appreciate the meal. I either read, watch Netflix, or try to accomplish something else while eating. And I wanted to bring this question up. It's such a good one, Lon, because I think pretty much all of us can relate to that. I fall in the same boat, and I'm really curious, Meadow, do you have any thoughts for those of us who feel like, we're on this wheel and we have so much to do and we're trying to multitask? How can we slow down a little bit and really bring in the spiritual aspect of being present with our food?
That is such a wonderful question. I'm really glad that Lon asked it, because many of us, I am single and I'm faced with that situation frequently. And there's a couple ways to look at it. One, I sometimes watch TV when I eat. But rather than judging myself, that's the first thing, is you can think of it as creating a sense of community. In times of yore, people gathered around the fire and shared stories of the day and ate the communal meal together. And so for those of us who live alone in this kind of fast-paced modern world, when you do decide to turn on the TV while eating or doing something else, first of all, remove the judgment and accept the fact that you sometimes choose to do that. Either it's been a long day and you just want to zone out, or think of it as creating a sense of community. And I don't know if you guys can see my cat here, but she's...
lower third is covering, but I would love to see your little mystic cat.
So that's the first thing. And then my suggestion is, from time to time, do take the time to not do anything else when you're eating, to turn off the television, to set aside the work, the email. Music I don't think is a distraction. Music I actually think can enhance a meal if it is paired correctly with your meal, something that fits your mood or the mood of the meal. And often, even though I live by myself, I will make myself multi-course meals, and I will sit down at the table, pour myself a glass of wine, light the candles. I will even cheers myself, and that's a habit I've started doing recently, that anytime I have a glass of wine by myself, before I take that first sip, I raise it and I think of something good from the day, and I cheer.
Out there, if you have a water bottle or if you have anything, let's all do a cheers to ourselves right now. I think that's awesome, Meadow.
Yeah,
we can't really love other people unless we love ourselves first, right?
And so that's the first thing that I do, and it takes like 2 seconds, but it makes me take a breath. It makes me think back over the day, have gratitude for the events of the day, and to really honor that time. And that way, too, you don't feel like you're just drinking alone or whatever else, whether you're having water or juice or kombucha or a tea. But I often do it when I have a glass of wine, but whatever it is that you are having. So I do that first, and as I said, so we're all busy and it feels like, I don't have time to just sit down and have a meal. But the truth is, when you take that time to sit down and honor yourself and take a deep breath, which I'm going to do now.
And while you're doing that, can I share a little story that relates? It's when I heard your mom, Denise Linn, who is the co-author of this cookbook, she said that she would come over to your house unexpected sometime, and she would like catch you just having this amazing, beautiful meal by yourself. And I heard that, I mean, so many years ago, and I still remember it because I thought that is so refreshing to hear that people are out there in the world just taking the time. You're not doing it for anybody else, for show or anything like that. You're just doing it for yourself. Do you remember that, Meadow?
I do, and you know what, it is something that I do frequently. And I think when I take that time, and as I said, I don't do it always, but when I take that time to take that deep breath and honor myself, it actually creates more time in my life and more energy, because I'm honoring myself, because I'm taking that break. And actually, when I was a school teacher, I used to get teased because I would take my whole lunch to the faculty room and I would unpack real silverware and I'd bring a real plate and I'd take it out of my Tupperware and put it on the plate, and everyone laughed because they're eating their frozen meals and their ready-to-go sandwiches. But for me, it was stressful being a teacher and busy, and you're on your feet all day long. And to take that time, and it didn't take much longer than it did for anybody else. I always took leftovers from dinner that I'd made the night before. But I found that I would go back to my classroom feeling more relaxed, more peaceful, and have more energy and vigor to be the very best teacher that I could be. So that's what I suggest for lawn. You don't have to do it all the time, but when you can, and if you don't have time or you don't feel like you have time to cook, you can get some takeout and put it on a nice plate. Maybe light candles, maybe pour yourself a glass of wine or a glass of sparkling water, and take that time to eat. And it doesn't have to take all day to cook, pasta sauce from scratch. It's okay to get takeout and put your love and intention into that food and eat it in a sense of, we talk about mindfulness now, where you take deep breaths, you think about where your food came from, whether you made it yourself, grew it yourself, or got it at the fast food restaurant, and take a deep breath. And it's also about eating without judgment. So I suggest maybe Lon sets one meal a day a week to try this, whether it's his morning coffee and slowing down and really enjoying every sip of that coffee and noticing the way that the milk or cream or coconut cream or whatever it is you put in your coffee or don't put in your coffee, the way it swirls into that coffee. Or maybe it's a Saturday night dinner, but one meal a week to really slow down, sit down, taste your food, enjoy it. And you'll notice that that will expand into other aspects of your life, because the more you begin to treasure yourself, the more you'll treasure other things as well. Plus, on a more physical side, it's actually healthier to eat that way. You will eat less and you'll enjoy your food more. So, and that's not just for Lon, for anybody. I encourage you to try one day a week, whether you live alone or with your family. Start there. If you already do that one day a week, maybe try 3 days a week and expand it from there, and really sit down and have that experience of enjoying your own company, the company of those at your table, and really cherishing that food and savoring it. And then I'd look forward to hearing what results and what experiences you have. So do please contact me and let me know how it goes.
Yeah, and put them in the comment stream too below. We'd love to hear, what people have to say about that. And switching up just a little bit, we want to talk about colors. Penny had a question about how to get more energy, and I love the part of your book where you talk about the different colors of food, and it's so important to get the rainbow of colors in our food. So what would you say as far as how does the color of our food relate to the moods that we want to create?
Oh, I have to try to rein myself in, because I get so excited talking about color that I can go on for a long time. But our color is made up of wavelengths. For instance, red is a short wavelength, and violet is a very fast wavelength. And our body is made up of these wavelengths that are always kind of flowing through us and through the air, and our whole world is made up of that. And colors react to us, and we react to them. Oh goodness, that's my dog barking at the mailman. So I've got a whole menagerie here. But so we react to colors in different ways, and they can affect us in multitudinous, because that's a good word, ways. For instance, research has shown that people will calm down in a pink room. So often mental health institutions are painted pink because it has a calming effect. And yellow or orange are a great color to choose for your dining room, because it's a color of community and connection between people. There are also the colors of the food, and this chakra is a word that many people are familiar with. It's a Sanskrit word that talks about these energy centers. And it's believed that our body has 7 different energy centers, starting at our sacrum and going up to our crown. And each one is also represented by a color that have associated qualities. So that is another way if you're trying to look to, and this is a very quick overview. It's much more detailed in the book, or if anyone wants to email me, I can give more detail. I know I'm spewing this quite quickly. But if you're feeling that one of your chakras is out of balance, or you want to balance your whole system, you might create a chakra meal and use some of the associated colors in your meal preparation, either on your tablecloth or in the foods that you create themselves. But for instance, say you were talking about grounding earlier, Pamela, and the root vegetables. You could also do a grounding meal that was using red foods. Red has this kind of, it's our base chakra, it's that vigor, vitality, it's the kind of chakra that that's located at our sacrum, and it's also, it's this place where we kind of connect to the earth. So you could, with intention, once again, as we were talking about before, create a meal that's using those red foods. And then the plus side of that is red foods have lots of great antioxidants. They're also really helpful for us. So that was a very quick overview of little tiny bit of all my passion on color. But I will turn it over to you, Pamela.
Okay. I know, and I feel the same way. In 30 minutes, there is so much I want to talk about. I absolutely love this topic, And I told people we talk about spices too. So I'm really getting into more fresh herbs, as you see my little rosemary coming up from below. And I love the smell of rosemary, and I think that it really satisfies a part of us when we have fresh herbs in our diet, in our meals. What are some of your favorite herbs to use when you're cooking, Meadow?
Oh, that's such a good question. Well, I love using fresh herbs. I use a lot of parsley, especially flat leaf parsley. It doesn't tickle my throat quite as much as the other parsley. I love cilantro, also called coriander in British Commonwealth countries. Fresh mint, it grows in my garden, and that's one of my favorites. And basil, I adore basil, and rosemary too. Rosemary grows very well here, so my yard is filled with rosemary. And I feel herbs are such a wonderful way to add freshness to food. And we don't really have a lot of time to talk about all the mystical qualities of herbs and spices, but from really a practical chef point of view, herbs are such a great way to add flavor to a dish with keeping it light and healthy and fresh tasting. And you just take a few different herbs and you can completely alter a dish. I love this idea of how you can take mint and cilantro and put that together, maybe with some basil, and it tastes very Southeast Asian, kind of Vietnamese and Thai. Or you take just that basil and it tastes Italian or maybe even Southern French, Mediterranean. Or you take mint with some lemon juice and it tastes North African. And just by taking those 4 different herbs and putting them in different combinations, you get to taste the world in different ways. And it doesn't take a lot of money or time or energy, and you can travel the globe from the comfort of your own kitchen.
And you can also grow them. So when you're eating food that you have grown right in your kitchen, it adds a whole nother element to it. And mint is really good for reducing stress. And I know a lot of us are under a lot of stress right now. So if you can take a few sprigs of mint and throw it in your tea or a dish that you're creating, it really adds a lot.
And the color, too. We've talked a little bit about color. Mint, that green color. Green is connected with our heart chakra. It's often connected with love. Also because green is so abundant in the universe. Maybe not in California right now during the drought, but in Washington where you are, there's a lot more green. So it's often connected with abundance, too. So green can be the color of abundance. So when you eat that mint or drink your mint tea, as I have here, that you can do that also with the intention of bringing more abundance, love into your life. So you can use foods in multiple ways. You can connect with the color and also the healing properties of that food at the same time.
And one thing that I like to share with people is it doesn't have to be this or that. You don't have to make a meal and then go meditate and then do some affirmations about abundance. You can create the whole thing. So while you are making your meal that night, you can actually infuse it with a meditation. You can infuse it with affirmations about what you want to create. And who doesn't want more love and abundance in their life? I wish we had more abundance of time right now because it's getting up to the end of the half-hour, Meadow, and there is just so much in your book and that we could talk about. Food goes so much further than just this thing on our plate that we're eating. It connects us to the world. Are there any last comments that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I guess my final words, if it were that, would be to eat what you love and love what you eat. It's kind of my motto, my mantra, that so often we get stressed about our food choices or we eat food that we dislike because we think it's healthy for us. But when you can eat the foods that you love, but love it too and feel healthy and vital after you eat it, that is really the goal, to have this joyous connection with our food. And those, I guess, would be my final parting words.
And if I could share one that I got from you, Meadow, you say, have a delicious life. And why not have a delicious life? I hope that you can come back next week for all the listeners out there, because we have Dr. Will Tuttle from A World Peace Diet, and he's going to be sharing some thoughts about his amazing book, too. There are just so many amazing people out there. So thank you very much, Meadow. I am so jazzed to have you on the show. I've been a fan of yours for a long time, so thanks for taking the time out today.
Thank you so much. It's such a joy. Have a delicious day.
Okay, bye-bye.